everyone, we're making easy peel hard-boiled eggs. I'll be following the guidelines from Cook's Illustrated magazine for the technique. And with our hard-boiled eggs, I'll be making deviled eggs. We need a couple tablespoons of fresh parsley and fresh chives, a tablespoon or two of mayonnaise and sour cream, and then a mixture of brown mustard, vinegar, salt, pepper, and sugar. Of course, we'll be needing eggs. I've got 6 fresh white eggs. First, take a shallow pan and turn it on high so that your water can boil. Then place your eggs in a steaming basket and place that on top. That's right, a steaming basket. We're actually not going to be boiling these. Place the lid on and then turn your heat down to medium. Set a timer for 13 minutes exactly. As your eggs are steaming, you can gather your ice bath. So all you'll need is 2 cups of ice and 2 cups of cold water. When your eggs are done, turn your heat off and then remove the eggs from the steaming pot. You don't need to let the eggs get all the way to room temperature, just warm enough to where you can handle them because they're quite hot and you do need to put them in an ice bath. You'll let that sit for 15 minutes. While your eggs are cooling, gather your ingredients for your deviled eggs. Once they're done, now the peeling begins. So I just cracked the end of one egg and within 14 seconds, I was able to remove the shell completely. And take a look at this egg. It's absolutely stunning. There are no blemishes, there's no chunks missing out of the whites, nothing. It's absolutely perfect. But this is the fun technique that they recommend. Dump out half of the cooling water and put the remaining water and eggs into a hard plastic container. Then shake it for exactly 40 seconds. And by the time you're done, you should be able to have all of your eggs peeled and ready to go. So how did it work? Well, I got 2 eggs perfectly ready to go. The shells are completely removed and there's no blemishes. One of them was totally destroyed. Another egg, the shell cracked and the shell came off really quite well. And then my final egg didn't break at all, so I had to manually peel it, but that didn't take much time at all. So while it wasn't flawless at 41 seconds, it definitely was faster than individually peeling them, which is super nice. What makes the steaming technique and the chilling technique ideal is this. The yolks are perfect. They aren't overcooked and green and stinky. The whites aren't undercooked or too rubbery. Every yolk came out perfectly. It's smooth and creamy and not too sulfurous. Ta-da! Even my broken egg white egg has a perfect yolk. The other interesting thing that Cook's Illustrated recommend for deviled eggs is to press all of your yolks through a fine metal mesh sieve. And this is to break apart the yolks and get a really buttery, kind of creamy, rich texture. Now you'll add your 2 tablespoons mayo, 1 tablespoon sour cream, salt, pepper, a half a teaspoon sugar, a half a teaspoon of vinegar and mustard, and then 2 tablespoons of 2 different herbs. Again, I'm using parsley and dill. If you had tarragon would be really nice if you can find it in your grocery store. Then you're gonna fold everything together until it's well combined. And of course, you're gonna need to do a taste test to make sure that it doesn't need any additional seasonings. And I think it's pretty good. Final step is to load up your egg whites. So I'm just doing it with a small teaspoon, but if you want it to be really fancy and come out with a design, you can take a plastic bag or pastry bag, cut the tip, and then you can just kind of fill your eggs with swirls. But I will just be using a spoon today. And voila! Now you have delicious, herbaceous deviled eggs with perfectly cooked yolks. Enjoy! Now we make a perfectly poached egg. Once again, I'll be using the Cook's Illustrated magazine for our technique. Like any poached egg, we're gonna need to bring a quart of water to a boil. It's always faster with the lid on. But what's interesting here is we're gonna crack our egg over a sieve. And the sieve is going to separate the yolk and the firm albumin layer, which is the clear part of the raw egg and eventually turns white when you cook it, with the thin albumin layer. The thin albumin layer is pretty watery, and the older the egg is, the more watery it gets. Now here, I have some pretty fresh eggs, so the thin, watery layer of the albumin isn't significant. You can see as I've collected it in the container that I've got maybe a tablespoon. But if you have older eggs, say 2, 3, 4 weeks old, you might have 2 or 3 tablespoons for just 2 eggs. So you can dispose of the thin, watery layer and then add 1 teaspoon of salt to your water and then 1 teaspoon of vinegar to your water. And this is going to change the alkalinity of the water, allowing your yolk to stay nice and runny and your whites to cook up really firm. Transition your yolk and whites into a dish that allows you to drop the eggs into your boiling water without splashing yourself. I'm using a gravy boat, but you can use just a measuring cup. Then you're going to you're going to poach your eggs for 3 minutes. You can keep the lid on and you don't need to swirl the water or baby it or anything. After 3 minutes are up, you are good and ready to go. Now what's interesting here is my whites got stuck to the sieve and it totally separated from the yolk. So here I've got an empty egg white and somewhere in the water I'm floating around an egg yolk. But this is our perfectly poached egg. I'm going to show you how we're going to use it in a second. And this is my egg yolk. So typically you would just crack an egg into a cup and then add it directly into your water without draining that white liquidy albumin layer. You can see that the whites collect here at the top and we're going to get kind of a stringy egg as a result. But again, you're going to boil it for 3 minutes. I'm going to put our perfectly poached egg on top of some avocado toast. So I mashed some avocado with a little bit of lemon juice, salt, and pepper. I'm placing my egg on top, and then I'm going to season it some more with a little bit of red chili flakes, some fresh cracked black pepper, and some coarse sea salt. Now I like using coarse sea salt because the flakes are big, so you really don't need a lot, and that crunch when you take a bite is just really satisfying. So how did this technique do? Perfect. Ooey gooey center, non-stringy white. It doesn't get prettier or tastier than this. So let's take a look at how the egg would be if we didn't drain the white. You see all that stringiness? It just makes for a messy presentation. Now it's totally edible and you're not going to notice the difference, but if you're presenting this egg for guests, you really don't want to show them all those leftovers. But once again, look at that middle. It's cooked so perfectly. Even our separated egg yolk cooked well. So I say this is a win, friends. Enjoy your perfectly poached egg.